Patterson!
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Cafe Lockdown. Our guest tonight really needs no introduction. He's very much a part of the Cafe Lockdown family, a much loved and respected figure in the freedom movement, and for good reason. So welcome, Nick Patterson.
G'day, mate. How are you?
Good. How are you, Nick?
Yeah, really, really well.
Now, you've just scored an amazing victory, which is surprising because you did mention that the judge was biased, which I would consider to be a divine miracle. But why don't you tell our audience about the great news that you've experienced recently?
So we had our pre-trial hearings. It was a 5-day hearing before trial, and we ran two. There was a few things we had to have sorted out before the trial. One of them, though, was the two main issues. One was the collateral challenge to the lockdowns. We were challenging the validity, the legal basis for them. We didn't win that in the judge's ruling for the pre-trial, and I don't think the judge in any way wanted to make a decision on that because I don't know what sort of pressure they get. I imagine that there is a lot, and so anyway, look, it was sort of a tooth and nail fight to get anywhere with that collateral challenge. So we also ran at the same time jointly a 138 application, which is under the Evidence Act, Section 138. It's an application to have all of the evidence deemed inadmissible because of an impropriety of the police. Kind of like if police bash someone up to get a confession, that would be that confession would be deemed as inadmissible as in evidence because of the way by which they obtained that evidence. The judge agreed that the police targeted us and essentially incited us. She uses the word incite as well. It's interesting because the police were going around to all sorts of leaders in the freedom movement that were, had a platform, and they were charging them falsely with incitement. And it's interesting because in this judgment, the judge calls out the police for inciting us, in provoking us into fighting with them. So she granted us the application to have all the evidence deemed inadmissible. First, the judge said, "Well, why would you want to have the evidence thrown out? It's obviously in your favor." She mentioned how the footage was completely in favor of the defense, but then was my co-accused Adam Rube. His barrister said that, explained to the judge that if all of the evidence is deemed as inadmissible, there can't be a trial anymore, and that, which means that we win. We can get costs much easier, and then I can use that to then go after the police, which is what I always intended to do and I've always said I'll do. So she granted us that. She mentioned the human rights violations from the Section 21 of the Human Rights Charter. She mentioned 2 that the police committed. She mentioned the how the police statements were disturbing in how they were so inconsistent with what was on the body camera footage. And she also mentioned how the police assaulted our mate several times in this judgment. She mentioned that. So we got the win there, and now I've just had my charges thrown out. That was the next step, because I was technically still on bail when we received that decision, that ruling, because the prosecution weren't present for that hearing. It was a week after the pre-trial, and they weren't there, so they had to receive the ruling, read the ruling, and then they had to make a decision whether or not they were going to appeal it, which would be mad for them to appeal the decision. It's the right decision. Police clearly committed offences, a multitude of them, to get us to react. And the reason why we were able to prove the point that they had incited us to get the evidence from us that they would use to prosecute us was because we had ex-police working with us who had left the police force, who hate the corruption in the police force, and they were telling us different things that we should ask for in the disclosure process. One of them was the briefing for the protest day where we were arrested falsely and assaulted, and in this briefing, it had a whole lot of, it just had pages and pages about Nick Patterson this, Nick Patterson that, but it said in there that that I would use force if I believed that I was being unlawfully treated, or others in our group were being unlawfully treated. So that the fact that they had that before the incident means that they knew full well in their state of mind that if they were to treat us the way they did, that they would get a response. And that's how we were able to prove that it was deliberate. It was all intentional. It wasn't just police going too far. It was police literally inciting us into a reaction so that they could prosecute us, so they could put us on bail conditions and then silence us with those bail conditions.
What I don't understand, what I find surprising and appalling at the same time is just about your case in particular, is just how brazen the police actually are. So they're prepared to just make up evidence on the fly and just make it up as they go along, despite the video evidence that clearly contradicts them, and it actually forces a judge who's not on your side to side with you. I'm just curious to know what is going through. I don't expect you to know. You're obviously not, them yourself, but what do you think's going through their minds? Why are they so brazen? I know you're not a mind reader.
I don't think that the police force has the brightest and the best people, right? That's the first issue. I think they have some of the weakest people in there now. I think all the good moral ones have left, except for maybe a few. There's probably some good ones still in there holding on in the hope that it'll get cleaned up. So you imagine having people who are happy to go along with things that are completely unconscionable. That they would know that the government's corrupt, that they're making laws that are completely corrupt. They would know that they're lying. These are people that are happy to do that. There were 43 police witnesses in my case, and not one of them came forward and said what happened was wrong and I'm willing to break my silence and speak out. There was no police officer that did that. So I don't think much about the ethics. I don't have any real value for the police ethics. They don't have any ethics as far as I'm concerned. So I think they're used to just using force to get their way. And by prosecuting people maliciously, dragging them through the courts, charge stacking them, which is where they would charge you with like all of these charges for offences you didn't even commit, to put the fear into you. And then they'll try to then negotiate with you into making what's called a plea bargain, which is, look, all right, we'll drop all these charges if you plead guilty to this lesser one. And they do this all the time, and they get away with it because people give in and they're ignorant of how the law's meant to function. Now, I wasn't ignorant. I had a fairly good basis in how Victorian law is meant to operate. I'm not a lawyer or anything, but I've been going to the community law research group for years. I've got some friends that have been mentoring me and teaching me, some of the significant cases. So I had this knowledge that, hey, you guys can't do this. You're breaking the law. And then when they try to bluff you into believing that they can get away with this stuff, I'm like, no way. And then it became an issue of principle. I know full well that what I was targeted for was because I was doing something righteous and good. I kept my gym open during the lockdowns. I spoke out publicly against the state government and the COVID mandates. I told everybody and every business I could to stay open and ignore these pricks that are lying to you. And then I ran rallies as well and assisted other people that were running rallies. And that was, that didn't, I guess, get me any favors from the police or get me any a positive outlook or a positive look into the police. The police, they don't want you protesting. They didn't want us standing up for our rights. It was like
we saw what happened to Zoe Bula.
Yeah, we saw how they shot our mate Matt, with rubber bullets and other people at the front. I mean, they're just was out of control. So do we just go, get overwhelmed with fear and decide to give in and go, look, just do what they say? No way. That's the time to rise. That's the time to stand up. So, I know I had all sorts of things. I had 18 police cars turn up to my gym once with Channel 7. I had hit pieces all the time in the mainstream media, especially Channel 7. They were one of the worst. And the Herald Sun or another, they were shocking. Daily Mail, News.com, all of them. They just were constantly writing things about me that I know they're not true. So, it doesn't bother me. I'm strong enough in myself and in my own convictions to not care what you think. And that just made me more diligent and more confident to keep going forward. And yeah, so I think they're just used to getting away with it because a lot of us don't have the I guess the inner conviction to just go, no, the line's in the sand, that's wrong. I'm not going to buckle here. And if you actually endure to the very end, I know that you win. And people have said to me before, you can't beat the police, Nick. You can't beat them, not in their courts. I've beaten them 3 times from COVID stuff. I've had three matters finished now, and I've won 3. So, and I haven't lost any. So actually, I lost one, and then I reviewed it in the Supreme Court and got a win. That's why most of the COVID funds were thrown out of Victoria, which case wasn't published for about a year later. Okay, sorry, my light's just gone out here.
That's all right.
You can still see me though. Yep.
Yeah, I can see you fine.
So that's I think people just need to be much more convicted that the principle is because if we understand our principles that right is right, wrong is wrong, truth is truth, courage is absolutely important, and you must have it to the very end, and we're willing to follow that through to the very end, we would get so many more victories and wins, and that would force our these corrupt agencies and corrupt politicians and police to have to do the right thing in many cases. But we just don't have enough of that. We've been, I think, collectively, we've been weakened a lot, and and that needs to change. We need a bit of a change in our ethos in the Western world. I think we need to become strong again, which really this whole process is doing that to many of us. It's making us more resilient, more diligent, more convicted for truth and justice.
Absolutely. We've got a question from the audience from Martin Taylor. I'll get to Martin's question in a moment, but like you said, look, people are used to it. I guess that explains partly why the police are so brazen, because they're used to people caving in straight away. Usually they're vulnerable people like Zoe Bula. They don't understand the legal system. They don't have the time and the resources. And people don't know their rights. And one of the striking things, it's a fundamental right, is that you have, if you're getting assaulted by police or one of your friends is getting assaulted by the police, you have a right to react. A lot of people don't know this. A lot of people think that it's a criminal offense to get physical and strike a police officer in self-defense, when it's actually not. It's a legitimate right.
And now there's a case that you can look at, DPP versus Patterson, and you'll be able to read all about it. It's only a short case, and I think it's like 24 pages long. You read, especially the second half of it, you read through that, and you'll see that you absolutely can punch police if they're assaulting you, or they're assaulting your mates, or if they are unlawfully depriving you or your mates of their liberty. As long as you see the assault, or you see the crime being committed, you have a right to use force, and my case proves that.
Now we're about 16 minutes into the podcast. We've got just under 200 people listening at the moment, and Martin Taylor has a question. So where to now with the chasing up the police? Now, guys, please feel free to drop in all your questions for Nick. So yeah, where to now with the chasing up the police individually? So I guess the way forward, what's next?
So two things, and I believe in you know, the idea of I'll keep it quiet and don't let them know. No, just tell it to their faces what we're doing. I think that's because we need to operate the opposite to how they do. They do things covertly, quietly, in secret. We do it out in the open. We shout it from the rooftops, and by that way we get the public in. I think that was a big part of getting this win as well, was having the pressure, because when we were in court we had police, you know, a number of police in there, and then we had all of our people in there filling the courtroom for 5 days during the week. One of the days a lot of the people couldn't even be in the courtroom because there were too many. So public pressure is how we win this, and financially, it might be a burden when you're represented by you know, a barrister, or but if you get the community behind you and they support you and help you, you can you know, that way the burden. And I think of that Bible verse: bear one another's burdens that they may be light. So we don't all be on one person. We can help share, you know, take some of the load. But that was a big part of getting the win. Where do we go to next? Well, first things first, do a civil action against the police. That's the first thing. And then because you get a 3-year statute to do that. I think you could go longer, like as our case just finished, we could potentially, it could take more than 3 years, but it is a statute. You've got a statute of limitations for civil action, and for personal injury. Like I had my shoulder broken, like it ripped out of its socket when they belted us up. There was like 30 of them that ran across the road and belted up my mate, and we had a big scrap with them. And then they put me in jail and all the rest of it. So I've got until the 29th of May to at least start an action, which I've just engaged somebody for that. And then after that, we go after those specific police officers criminally for what they did. And the you know, I know it's hard to win a criminal case against the police, but if they commit crimes, why should they not be criminally prosecuted? So we'll make a big deal about that as well. And there's no statute of limitations on you know, criminal offences. So you could be 20 years down the track, you could still 50 years, you can still criminally prosecute someone for a crime they committed 50 years ago. Obviously, we're going to do this civil case and then start the criminal prosecution somewhere. Sometime after that, maybe you know, 6 months later, or maybe more. I don't know, but that's the plan so far. And you know, it's about the principle. It's not about money or anything. Although we have to get some compensation because I lost my business. That's you know, I actually couldn't run it anymore. I couldn't sell it really either because it was just, they brought me to a point where I just need to get rid of it now. I actually can't go on anymore. And that was because of things like taking my working with kids card away because of the violent offences that I allegedly committed, which I've not been convicted of, which meant I couldn't work with children, which meant that I couldn't run my kids' classes, which meant, you know, that's 30% of my business. My shoulder was damaged. That was a lot of the work. I was doing a lot of work, you know, private coaching. I couldn't do that because of my shoulder. So there's that. Then there's my wife, my children, 29 days in jail. the injury and the malicious prosecution. So there's got to be something for that. And then obviously people need to go to jail and people need to lose their jobs.
Because your case is historic and the implications of it is quite broad. It could potentially blow the lid on the whole scandemic.
Yep, and we can use this now in a civil action and a criminal action to potentially change the way policing is done in this state. One of the things that's happening now is we're seeing a lot of people starting to get wins on the board or get close to getting wins on the board against the police. And one of the things that police were doing during the lockdowns was a tactic called kettling. Remember that tactic?
Yes,
circle around you. Yeah, they'd circle around you and hold you there for hours and not let you go. And that's completely criminal. And
that's false arrest, right?
It's not even false arrest. I don't even think it's that. It would be unlawful deprivation of liberty. Because I've got a really good video from one of the rallies, and it's my mate Marty who literally asks every single police officer there, why am I being arrested? Why am I being detained? Will you tell me? And he asks all of them. Not one of them tells him. And I taught him always to ask, because I said, if you're arrested or detained, they have to tell you the reason for the arrest or the detention at the time of the arrest and detention. And if they don't, they can't hold you anymore. And now they're detaining people and holding them there, but not telling them why. That's unlawful deprivation of liberty, and it's actually could be considered psychological torture. I think it would quite easily could be defined as psychological
Absolutely.
torture. Yeah.
I was in a situation like that, and there were women and children. I mean, I was okay. I'm a grown man, but there were women and children that they kettled in. Some of them had nothing to do with the protest. They just happened to be, it was at a petrol station in South Melbourne, about 50 people. There were people that were coming out of the petrol station, had nothing to do with the rally. They had babies. They were all being kettled. And it was just traumatic for the women and children. They were all crying, hysterical.
And it's the idea for them to hold you there and not tell you why. That's the key. If they had said, we're holding you here because it's a safety issue, or because of COVID, this, whatever, and they made up some reason, that might suffice potentially in court, but they never did. When people would ask them, what are you doing? Why are we here? They wouldn't tell them. And that's where they're in a lot of trouble. And a mate of mine's got a case where they kettled a group, and he actually used some force to get out. And now they've charged him with a multitude of assault charges. Well, he's going to run that against them as well, because that's the way he's going to win that case. Is explain to me how you can hold people there without telling them why they're being held there, and how it's not a human rights violation when Section 21, subsection 4 of the Human Rights Charter literally says when a person is arrested or detained, they must be informed of the reason for the arrest or detention at the time of the arrest or detention, and they weren't doing that.
All the rules just went out. They're all broken. And Martin made a statement here, so the police will attempt an out-of-court settlement to avoid avoid amendments. I'm sure they tried that on you many times.
No, they never have. And the reason they haven't is because I've been really vocal that I won't accept anything like that. I mean, if they were to offer something that was completely fair and reasonable, and they said, we'll put these people in jail and we'll do this and we'll change this, that, and the other, then sure. I'm open to a fair outcome. I'm not unreasonable, but they're not going to do that. They're going to say, hey, here's a whole lot of cash. We want you to shut up about this, and we want this to go away, and we don't want these police officers going to jail. That's what they want, and they don't care because it's not their money. They just throw other people. It's the taxpayers' money that they throw around.
Yeah, exactly. That's another reason why they're so brazen, is because there's no personal consequences to them, but hopefully that will change, seeing that you're, God willing, you're planning to potentially carry out some criminal actions against police officers individually who are acting like thugs.
Yeah, we'll do everything I can. if I can do everything I can and expose everything, so when they try to stop me, that's when we expose them as well to the wider audience. That we can do that. You know, it's great that we've got people like yourself and Avi and other people, you know, covering, you know, this story and letting people know and keeping them up to date. We need to expose the lies, because that's how these people gain all the power. It's by perpetuating lies. It's all about lies. Everything's a lie. That gives them power. COVID was a lie. Climate change is a lie. You know, inclusivity and all of that garbage with the LGBT stuff's a lie. It's all lies, and they get huge amounts of power out of lies. We need to expose it and not go along with it, and then they start to lose their power, which is exactly why people who speak out against the false narratives, the lies, and have an audience get targeted, get censored, and get kicked off social media.
That's why very few people speak out, because, you know, at the end of the day, people fall into that trap where they want to go along to get along, and they just want to get on with life. And the powers that should not be are banking on that mindset.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are starting to become much more empowered. For the people that, you know, made mistakes during the COVID and they realized that you know, a lot of people got the jab and they didn't want to, and they thought everyone was getting the jab, and then they've seen other people that didn't, and they probably thinking, I wish I had have, you know, been stauncher, had a bit more gumption and a bit more courage. But that's all right if they can learn from that and go, you know what, next time I won't back down. I learned this from fighting. I had a good, solid fight career. That's what I did. I was a very good fighter, and I'm not saying it to toot my own horn, but I was. You know, I won titles and I fought internationally, and I've learned from the fights that I had where I didn't do my best and I lost. I learned the most about myself. You know, I could have won that fight. How could I give up there? I could have fought harder. I could have done more. You know, when you haven't done your best, it's all fight. I think everything in this reality we live in is all a fight against the physical and the spiritual. You've got your principles and your conscience, and you've got the physical fears and all the stuff in this world, and the peer pressure and all of those pressures trying to break down your integrity of your structure of who you are. And we need to be strong, which means we need to know who we are. We need to know what we believe in, and we need to be willing to have the confidence to follow those principles through and defend them to the very end. And if we were that kind of a people, which I know we once were, especially in the Western countries, we have a great history, as much as the mainstream academia are trying to create a new history and make us hate our history. But we have a really powerful history of winning, persevering, and overcoming all sorts of obstacles. And we need to go back to that, and I think a lot of us are.
And Jason says you learn everything from your mistakes. So Nick, you know, as an athlete, as you mentioned, you would basically look at your fights, how you went in each fight, and that forced you to do introspection. And that's how a person at the end of the day develops. They learn from their mistakes through doing introspection.
Indeed.
Nick, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience? I know you've been caught up with your case. Have you been kept abreast of what else is going on with the state of the world? Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us? Anything interesting?
Yeah, look, a couple of things. One of them, we're running a massive festival. I'm working with three other blokes that are good mates. And there's actually a whole lot of us, but it's three main guys that I work with regularly. We're doing we're doing a freedom festival. It's called the Living Free Festival, and it's going to be on the 23rd, 24th, and 25th of August. And this is going to be huge. We've got all of this music, workshops, speakers, international speakers coming over from around the world. And it's a big deal. It's a really big deal. There's a website for this. It's called livingfreefestival.org. Living Free
And I've
Festival.
actually dropped it into the description. So guys, please check it out. The link is in the description of the podcast.
And there's a promotional code. If you put in banjo, you'll get some money. It'll be a bit cheaper for you because I'm one of the organisers and I'm one of the speakers there. So put in banjo in the promotion section, and you'll get a discount. And banjo is my fight name. So we're organising this to inspire people to be stronger and to show people that freedom is valuable and that we have a beautiful future to look forward to, and we have a whole lot of power within us, but we just need to, we need to realize it and be around people, and we need to get away and be around people who have the same, those same values, because there's power in that. I mean, that's the idea of church back in the day. You come together and you're around people who are of the same ilk and mindset. Even though we might have differences, we have those same values. We believe in freedom, we believe in truth, we believe in justice, we believe in fairness, we believe in goodness. And there's a whole bunch of really, really good musicians that are going to be playing live there as well. And these are people that are, awake to the agenda, and they're very, very talented as well. And they've walked away from opportunities that they had where they could have gone very far. But they cared more about their principles and their values. So that's livingfreefestival.org and banjo, banjo, as the promotion, and you'll get a discount. So that's one thing that I'm working on. I've been working the Living Free movement for quite a while, and now I have obviously more time to put more effort in. But I want people to know that I had a lot of people tell me you can't win, you can't beat the police in their corrupt courts. Well, I can tell you can, because I'm 3-0, 3 wins, no losses so far against them for the COVID stuff. You can win. And I know I had barristers and solicitors for this big case, but the other 2 I didn't. I was self-represented for them. So and I've won them all in a different way. So there's many ways to win, and it's not that I'm good, or all it is that I just put a lot of effort in. I focused and went, I can, and believed I can. A lot of people would say you can't win, and I would say you can't win because you don't believe you can. If you don't believe you can do something, you can't do it. It's impossible to do something that you don't believe you can do, because the belief is what drives you to put the effort in to achieve that win. My daughter's just come in to say, do you want to say hi?
Say hello to everyone. Hello.
Say hi.
Hello. What's your name?
Hannah.
Hannah. What a lovely name. Say hi to everyone, the whole audience.
Say hi to everyone.
Hi.
Hannah.
Okay. All right. Go on, Hannah. Go on. Go, Mum.
Nate Slabby said something interesting, saying that I'm in Japan, no one is fighting for their freedom, no one understands. I'm actually surprised to hear that. Maybe you can drop in another comment to clarify, but I always thought Japan, at least right now, is actually leading the way to expose the vaccine fraud. A lot of really positive stuff is actually coming out of Japan, so I'm actually surprised to read that comment.
I think Japan, much like the Western countries, have been attacked from within and from they're not so much from without there, because their immigration policies, they have very low immigration, but definitely from within, with a lot of the Marxist ideology through the I don't know, but I would assume that anywhere that could be a light or a beacon to the rest of the world tends to be on the hit list from these people that are kind of running the show at the moment, which is why we see the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the USA and Europe being attacked the way they are, with all of this woke ideology, all the climate madness, and they were hit hardest probably with the COVID regulations as well.
It never ceases to amaze me how when they ever attack, us like this, the Western countries, they always do it under the guise of human rights, and helping people. And if you're against that, then you're a bad person, and it's just so insidious, brilliantly evil in the way they carry it.
That's their profession, is being evil and lying. You know, it's to just be untruthful and to deceive people. That's how they get their way. They tell us that this is terrible situation we need. I mean, look at the chemicals they spray in the sky. I mean, we've got a rainmaking control act. We've had that since 1967. It's on the government side. They do rainmaking operations. They've even got a no liability clause, I think, in Section 12 of the Rainmaking Control Act, right? In Section 12, it talks about how they're not liable for damage caused from those operations. These people that are sort of running things, they're psychopaths that want to control the weather, right? That's where that gives you an idea of what we're dealing with.
How psychopathic they are.
Yeah. They think they can control the weather because there's technology that allows you to do it, but it doesn't work long term. Just causes more problems. But they would tell us that there's, we need to do this to protect you from the effects of climate change. It's like, no, you're changing the climate with these elements. You're doing it, and you're telling us you're doing it to stop, to protect us from what's happening because there's too many people. And then they want to convince us that there's too many people. And imagine being a young person now growing up with this bleak outlook that people are bad, we're parasites on the world, and there's too many people, and we're killing the world. Imagine that. Where's the joy? This is all to bring people down to nothing, to take them to that dark place. And I don't want to be in that dark place. And that's why they affect the minds of the children, because that's where you get the biggest bang for your buck. And if you wanted to create, let's say you had a lot of power and you wanted to create a really dark world, well, you would have to fill darkness in the minds of the children to get the most to get the most bang for your buck, so that they end up building that dark world. And I just think we need to change this. And we have a voice, and we have a platform. Some of us have smaller voice, a smaller platform. Some have a larger one. But it doesn't matter. We have an element of power in that we can speak and affect people's minds and plant seeds in their minds. And we need to teach people to do what's right and to follow your conscience.
Absolutely. And you never know, like you said, some people have large platforms, some people small. You never know what, even if you speak to one person, you might even say the most innocuous thing. You never know what effect that could have on that person and the rest of the world. That cannot be understated.
100%. A funny thing, where I've been working at the moment, it's at a water treatment facility, and there's in this bioreactor, somehow tomatoes have started growing out of the water. So somehow seeds have been planted in a bit of muck and up this bit of pipe, you've got tomatoes growing from there. So you don't know where that, and when you share an idea, it's essentially a seed. It's a spiritual seed, because it's the beginning of something. You plant it in someone's mind, and it starts to grow, and it changes them, and then they start to do things based on that idea or concept. You don't know where those concepts and ideas, when you share them, where they're going to end up. And it might be someone hears it, repeats it there, and then you might see it, people speaking on a big platform, sharing that idea that came from you. But that's how we break down the false narratives. It's by speaking the truth, and when the truth is how you expose the lies. It's not that complicated, but it can be hard when the world is peer pressuring people not to say those things, penalizing people potentially for saying those things. Like if you say certain things, now you can be criminally charged and you can be sued. I have a friend who was sued for saying things against that wasn't even them. It was someone else said something about someone that ran an LGBT program for children, and it was on her Facebook channel, and because this friend didn't delete the comment, she was sued for about, I think it was like $100,000. So so it can be hard to speak the truth, but the truth is really valuable. And by our own suffering and persecution for that truth, so when we do something that's true and correct, even if we get hated and people attack us for it, that shows the value of that principle. If you know,
Absolutely.
because a false principle that's not true, people won't suffer for it. They won't endure it for it. And that's what we have, something that's more valuable than what they have. Don't lose your soul. You know, you got to keep all of that goodness, because that's what we take with us. It's not the other stuff.
Absolutely spot on. My first ever live stream, I think I might get hooked to this. A lot of great comments, a lot of positive stuff. Not so many questions. Like I said, guys, I would encourage you to ask any questions. But there's another one from Martin Taylor in one short statement. It sounds more like a question, though. What is the key to winning this war, and what tools can we provide to enable the people to be part of the solution? Question mark.
Yep, I think it's pretty simple. Speak the truth and have faith and confidence to do it. And the truth is what breaks, because it's the world of lies. Like, if we look at it from biblical perspective, you've got Satan, who's the father of lies, and you've got the God, who's the God of truth. And God doesn't lie, and Satan doesn't tell the truth ever. So that's what it is. You've got those two forces going to war. Stick with God, speak the truth, be the truth, live the truth. And it's not just something you say, it's something you do. It'll resonate with people, and it will inspire other people. Inspire means to have the Spirit in, and just, you need to realize how powerful the truth is when you live it. There's a really good Bible verse: "Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven." Meaning, the light and truth, do it, and then people see it and they become inspired. And inspire means to have the Spirit in. See what they're doing with the children in schools, with the mainstream media, and with the recreation of history and the cultural movements that the cultural Marxist movements, is they're inspiring destructive ideas and falsehoods into the minds of the people. And think of the infrastructure they have to do that. And this is the one way to clarify how powerful one person is who has the truth. Look at what they will do to somebody who speaks up and speaks the truth. Even they will kick them off social media. They will call them names in the mainstream media. I've had probably maybe 50 or more mainstream reports about me saying that I'm all sorts of things during the COVID period, because I spoke the truth. Now, if my voice on the small platforms that I was on, if it wasn't powerful, why would they put all that effort into demeaning me and censoring me by kicking me off? I was kicked off 4 platforms, right, on the social media platforms. So if my voice wasn't powerful, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't waste all of that effort and energy and money. But it obviously it is. And I'm just one guy. Imagine there was a whole army of us, and we didn't just like try to force it. We just were walking in truth, being honest, having integrity, being kind, being just, being fair, and being diligent enough to learn what they're doing, being wise to their stuff, and then telling other people this is what they're doing and this is how we can overcome them. And then more and more people become inspired with that. That's how we change this, because once you wake up to the sort of like the Matrix movie, once you come out of the Matrix, you can't go back in, right? Because it's all a scam, it's all a lie. How do you go back in? So once you awaken people to that, you then need to show them that there's a solution. And that's where I think, they've really pushed a godless society in the West, because without a knowledge of God and that you have a spirit, you can't have any true courage and conviction. How do you have faith to do things that you can't see a positive outcome for, when all of the things that you can see, the external variables, are threatening you? They're telling you can't win. How do you have the faith if you don't believe there is someone that can uphold you and defend you? I went into this knowing that God's got my back. If I stand up for the truth, God will defend me. I know the Psalms are very clear about that, and I know that I've just got to do what's right. And if I stand firm to the very end, I can't lose. But that was only because I had the faith. If you don't have the faith, I think it's very hard for people because they don't have that ability. Because how do you have real confidence or courage if you don't have that faith in God? I don't think you can. Where does the courage come from? What is it built on? What's it built on? It's on your own. It's on you, and you don't have the power to overcome all of the external forces. But I know someone that is God. So because I trust in God, and whether you agree with me in the God part or not, I mean, it's up to you. But I know that that's how I've been able to, succeed in the battles I've had, not just through COVID, but prior to that, and with many other things that I've done in the past.
And they've taken God away from the society. That's what they first do. And that's Daniel Andrews did that. He removed religious instruction from the schools. He actually went about it a clever way. He did it at lunchtime when no kids would rock up. So they took that away. They took away people's meaning, and then they would indoctrinate them with Marxist propaganda, and it would be cult-like propaganda. A lot of people don't acknowledge this, but Marxism is a cult. And these uni students and these high school students, because their purpose in life has been taken away from them, they feel like they've got no purpose. It's human nature. You want to belong to something. So they get drawn to these cults. They want to socialize. They want to meet people. That's how they get them at uni, especially. But you create a polarized society because not everyone's going to be a Marxist. Either one of two scenarios is going to play out. Either they're going to become brainwashed Marxists, or they're going to go the other way and they're going to become white supremacists, for example, or they could be another type of supremacist. Because, if you keep telling people, that you teach them to hate themselves, they're either going to fall into the propaganda and say, yes, I'm bad. I acknowledge that white people are bad, or they're going to say, screw you. And they're going to go the other way and, embrace something like white supremacism, not necessarily white supremacism. It could be another top form of extremism. And that's exactly what Klaus Schwab wanted. He wanted, when the COVID pandemic hit, he envisioned an angrier world. And that's exactly what's playing out right now in real time.
Well, you see the jihadis and the LGBTs, trannies walking together at marches, right? You see this stuff. It really, you see the Christian churches with LGBT flags, and not all of them, but a lot of them do. And this is, well, not a lot, there's enough of them to know that they've been infiltrated. So, we can see it's all backwards now, and none of it makes any logical sense. But, we just need to be able to see through it. And a lot of people don't want to, because why would you if you're not interested in the truth, because a lot of people don't care about the truth. They just want to have their comforts and they want to live the lie that, earning lots of money and having, going to work each day, coming home, going on my little holiday and doing whatever I'm doing and being respected by my peers. That to them might be a meaningful life. But I don't believe it is. I think it's completely meaningless. Like, what are you gonna live and die and never done anything real, anything powerful? We need to be more than that. And you can't really be more than that, I don't think, you probably can, but not to your full capacity if you don't realize that you have a divine gift from God, or that you've had a calling from God, because that's where it all comes from. You see people that have done amazing things that you look at the Christian world. I mean, you look at some of the most amazing people that have persevered. They've come from a biblical background, and without that, if you just believe that when I'm dead, I'm dead, like, why would you bother? You wouldn't risk anything. But I would risk what I have in this world for justice, for truth, and I wouldn't sell my courage for money. I wouldn't sell my faith for money, because these things that are spiritual are more valuable than all of those things. So, but to the physical man, he doesn't see those things, and they have no value to him. We need to be those people that do value faith and confidence and justice and truth. I saw Julia's asked a question.
She's got a question for you, Nick. So bravo, Nick. So happy for you. The judge actually did the right thing, but she could hardly ignore the video evidence. How do you feel now about the court system?
I believe it's corrupted, like everything, but I reckon that with this particular case, the judge probably thought that I was just a thug, just like some of the people in the freedom movement did as well, who thought that I was just a thug. He's had a punch on with the cops, but that's not what happened. So she's received 43 police witnesses saying certain things about me. She's received a briefing with all of this stuff about my martial arts background, my fight career. She probably looks at my face. I've got a boxer's nose. I've got cauliflower ears. I've got scars on my head, and probably thinks, "Yep, I reckon I reckon he did it." But then once she saw the footage, and once my mate Jay Reeves was cross-examined, she completely changed, and she realised, no, this isn't true. And then she looked at the statements and compared those statements from the police with the footage, and she totally changed. I met up with a King's Counsel as well. I had a chat with him. I met up with a lot of people in this process, and I don't think it's actually as bad as I thought in every way that I thought it was. But I do think there is a lot, especially the family court system. Some of the things I've seen there with friends of mine, it just shocks me. And when I was in jail for that month, there was about a quarter to a third of the people in there were in there for breaching IVOs, intervention orders. And I talked to these guys, and I don't believe that they're all liars, and they were all just wanted to see their kids. And then they get put in jail for 3 months or 6 months because they wanted to see their kids, because their wife or ex-wife said something about them that she didn't even have to provide evidence for, and then she can have armed police turn up and kick you out of your home and separate you from your children. Like, that to me is completely evil. How could we ever accept that in this society? Okay, it's one thing to separate someone from their children and wife if there's actual evidence of a crime. But when someone can just say something, that's like if someone just said, this man raped me, and then they go, we're going to put you in jail for that, because like, it's ridiculous. You can't. We've got to prove it.
Witch hunt.
Yeah, exactly. And I just looked at it differently when I went to that jail for that month, and I saw these people that were there, and some of them were just awesome guys. Worked there. I had a business. Then their business it's gone to nothing now because they're in jail for however long, because they've breached an IVO because they wanted to see their kids. And I think this is just completely evil. This is a government that is, in my opinion, completely psychotic. We talked about before how the government wants to control the weather. They want to control your business. They want to infiltrate every part of your life. And they get into your family. If you let them into your family, you're making a deal with the devil. I won't do it. There's no way I would ever say to the government, hey, do you want to come into my life and my family and sort out our resolve our disputes? No way. Because in my opinion, government as we have it now is completely evil. But as far as the courts go, I think it would depend on the judge. I've had a good result 3 times now. I had a good judge in the Supreme Court. Had this judge that I had, which I thought she was completely against me, but I reckon she just thought I was all of the things the police were saying I was because of all of the statements. So I think that's more of a police problem, because she completely changed once she saw the footage and she heard from one of our witnesses. And I had a really good magistrate too. I had a bad one as well, but I had a good one. So I don't think they're all bad and evil, and people say, oh, they're all Freemasons. I don't believe that. There probably are quite a lot that are, and they would hold the balance of power. But the idea that it's all corrupted, I don't see the evidence for it. I'm not saying it's not true, but my experience hasn't been what many have claimed it will be.
And Marla makes an interesting point here. So people truly believe that they're doing the right thing if they're following orders. That's how people get snared. They fall into that trap.
Yeah.
Because
But
they think that the authorities are acting in good faith. And so if they act in good faith, then it's a reciprocal relationship, which is completely false.
Well, that's why when you it's interesting, you see like a lot of the LGBT, and I'm not having a crack at people because, you know, of those things. I'm talking about collectively. A lot of those people aren't God-fearing, right? When you have an atheistic mindset, what happens is you can easily be disconnected from your conscience, because that's a spiritual thing. To really understand that the principles that affect your consciousness for good, to understand and comprehend those requires you to understand that it's the spiritual elements of who you are. So when people don't have that spiritual mindset, it's very easy for them to look at the government as being great, because they might have something inside of them that says, this is wrong, I don't feel right about that. But then they could easily shrug it off, thinking it's just, oh, look, there's peer pressure, a loud voice, the media saying all of these things. That becomes more important and more significant than that voice inside of them. Whereas the spiritual man or woman who's done that introspective work inside will know that, no, that's wrong, and I'm confident that that's wrong, and I'm confident that I'm right, and they'll have the capacity to speak out and to stand up and to endure whatever persecution comes because of the the value they have on those principles. Heather, yeah, I do have a page. I've been kicked off most things. I've just snuck back onto Facebook. I had to set up another email and the rest of it, and I'm on Instagram. I had to do the same thing there, as Nick's Samuel Nick. It's just got my Peacemaker logo, the lion. But I have a Telegram group, which is where I do most of my I do most of my communication there, and I comment sometimes as well, and I do some posting and share some videos, and that's Fight Corrupt Police on Telegram. It's t.me /Fight Corrupt Police. That's t.me/Fight Corrupt Police.
And the link is actually in the description. So you guys, you can, a little bit of homework. Once you get off of it, even now, if you can go click on the link and give Nick a follow, and also contribute if you can financially, because you'll have more cases coming up. We'll be taking on police and also going after them personally, which will be, I guess, that would be the most important thing, the most effective thing. Nate Slaby, you've posted a number of comments in the section. You've had some really disturbing experiences with the authorities breaking into your home, and really quite horrific. Thank you for sharing that, and our thoughts and prayers go out to you. There was another question from Cheryl Lee. So why do you think parents are not jacking up about why are they so complacent about things, controversial things like drag queen story time?
Well, the parents are converts to the cult. That's why. That's their religion. That's their atheistic religion that thinks that everything that the government deems as being clean is clean, but it's not. It's filthy and disgusting, and that's why we're at war socially in our society with these people, because they want to force these ideas and concepts which are destructive into the minds of our children, and they're these parents that go along with it, they're just converts to that false religion.
And then there's a follow-up question which you essentially have answered. Well, you're more so about the parents, but I guess in general, what do you think about story time for children in schools and libraries? But obviously that's part of the evil agenda to brainwash kids.
It'd be good if it was just clean story time and we're reading good stories. That'd be great, but they don't do that now. Now the the libraries are a place that you need to protect your children from. They've taken over the libraries now. They've taken over the schools. They've taken over the media. They've taken, over most of the institutions. Most of the schools have big LGBT flags on them. They're making everything part of the cult. Look at AFL, it's the same. They want to promote that, and then they get the athletes. So I actually was at the Hawthorn. Not Hawthorn. It was Waverley Park. I was at Waverley Park because I've got a mate that lives near there, and we're doing a workout on the steps. Just a high intensity workout, and you can see that they're getting all of the the athletes that would basically influence that element of society. They're getting them into the cult there. They're getting them wearing the rainbow thing. They're getting them wearing all these things for these agendas, and then they're pushing them through the sport, which these people basically worship. And then they perpetuate that idea, because obviously these people who are the best athletes in their little community are looked up to by the rest of the community. And then they see, Jimmy over there, our best footy player, he's wearing the rainbow, the 6-coloured rainbow, and then they follow. That's because we lack the values now. But I think it's coming back. Where a lot of people are really pushing for the values, and I think we're seeing society turn back the right way. Many of us, at least a large minority.
Celebrities have always been at the forefront of social engineering the masses to do what the powers that should not be want. A couple of people have mentioned Julian Assange. Look what happened to Julian Assange, Faye and Julia. For exposing the truth, how it's being prosecuted and persecuted as we speak. So Nick, before we finish for the night, do you have any other words of wisdom or inspiration for our audience? You've shared a lot of inspiration, but is there anything else?
Well, my coach, he used to always say to me, my fight coach, quitters never win and winners never quit. And the things we shouldn't quit on are the things of the spirit, which are integrity, justice, truth, kindness, confidence, courage. These are all the things that we see are lacking in our society. We need to be it so people can see it, and then they get inspired to do it themselves. And I think that's how we have a revolution, because that's our most powerful weapon, is the words that we speak and the way we conduct ourselves amongst our fellow men and women.
Nick, it's always a pleasure to have you on. You always drop a lot of truth bombs. You overwhelm everyone with truth bombs, which is what we need, because we're in a world where we're constantly inundated with falsehood and lies. So we would always love to have you back on. So hopefully it will be soon. And I hope to hear some more good news.
Thanks, mate. And thanks for what you do. And thanks for being a light to the people and sharing your platform to me, because I've been deplatformed in most places, and I rely on people like yourself to help me get the message out. So thank you, and God bless. And guys, once again, the links are in the description below. So the Living Free Festival, the link to that, use the code BANJO, BANJO. I'll just drop that in the comments for the audience again. Just give me a second. So BANJO, BANJO, as in Banjo Patterson. Let me just, here we go. I'll just flash that on the screen. So BANJO, so Living Free Festival, the link to that is in the description. Also, please, right now or once you get off the podcast, the link to Nick's Telegram is also in the description. So please, if you haven't done so already, go follow him and be sure not only just to follow him, but to share his posts and his work far and wide. So thank you, everyone, for joining. Much love and light to all of you. Have a good evening.